What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. I haven't done a sit down with you guys like in a very long time, so I wanted to do a little sit down with you guys just so we could get a little more up close and personal. So today's video, you guys, I wanted to do a video, and I feel like I never talked to you guys. Like, I know I talked to you guys a lot about, the stuff that I went through when I lived like in Fresno, in my hometown, and a lot of the stuff that, all the crazy shit I did, like, a couple years back, or like when I was a little younger. But I feel like I haven't really touched a lot on my childhood and what it was like growing up. So I kind of wanted to let you guys in and just kind of share some of my memories with you guys. So today's video is going to be about my childhood and how it was growing up with mama and papa. So a lot of you guys are familiar with my mom and dad through either my videos or my niece's videos, the Murillo twins. A lot of you guys know the lore. Is that how you say it? The lore? I don't know how to speak English or Spanish, but a lot of you guys know the lore behind mama and papa's relationship. But I kind of want to just, wanted to share with you guys basically how it was for me growing up during their divorce and what my childhood was like and how it kind of affected me. So yeah, that's what I wanted to get into today. And then also, before I kind of like get into this video, I just wanted to say, like, this video is not to bash my parents in any way. I just wanted to share what it was like growing up. And I feel like sometimes when I make these videos, sometimes other people could relate, and it just makes other people feel seen, and it just it's just a little relatable to maybe other people who have gone through maybe the same thing. And then also just kind of like you guys know a lot of like what my parents went through, but I think like we haven't really shared how it was for us like as kids, or what it was like growing up during this like whole ordeal or whatever. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So usually I have my Modelo with me, but I've been feeling wine lately, so I'm gonna take a little sippy sip. Okay, so basically how I was when I was little, you guys, I was like nothing how I am today. When I was little, I was very shy. I was a very shy kid. Even in high school, I think I was pretty much shy all the way up to maybe like me being like 18 or 19. Once I hit 18 or 19, I kind of got out of my shell. I feel like I was a very late bloomer. So I was like super quiet, you guys. I was super shy, nothing how I am now. If you guys were to talk to people that I went to like school with, like elementary, middle school, or like even high school, like they'll tell you that I was like super quiet and I was like super shy, and I was like a very timid kid. I feel like just thinking like of my childhood, just kind of I don't know, it like, I don't want to cry or anything, but I mean, I kind of like it, just like, I don't know, it makes me a little teary-eyed. So I'm gonna do my best. And you guys, I don't want, like, I'm not doing this because I want you guys to feel sorry for me or anything like that. I just like doing videos like this just because I feel like there's always someone out there who can relate. Some of my best memories growing up. So basically, my mom and dad, they separated when I was 8 years old. Some of my best memories with my parents would probably be like, we would do a lot of stuff together. When I was little, we would go to church every Sunday. My mom and dad, they would go out together. They would go like to family parties. They would do like fun stuff together. When I was little, my dad, he was always on the road. He was a truck driver. So my dad was kind of gone a lot, and it was like usually me and my mom. Another one of like my best memories. it's funny because I feel like I'm the type of person that I don't let, like, I try not to be like a sensitive person. Not that there's anything wrong with being like that, but I just feel like I don't really feel comfortable like with crying and stuff. So it makes me feel uncomfortable to cry. I'll get into it later as to why I'm like that. So my best memories was, I was like a chicken growing up, you guys. Like, I was very scared of the dark. I hated sleeping alone. So I remember I would always like cuddle up in between my parents. And I remember like my dad coming home from work was like my highlight of the day. I would like always wait for my dad to get I remember I would always wait for my dad to come home, and like that was my highlight of my day. And like, you know, whenever my dad would come home, like I would hang out with him and like I would just talk his ear off, just, you know, me being a little kid. I do remember when my parents were still together, they would fight a lot. I don't really remember my parents being that affectionate towards each other. Right before they broke up, they got in a big ass fight, and I remember I was 8 years old, and I went into the room and I was crying because I heard them like fighting super bad. And my sister, she was a teenager, so I was like 8. My sister was a teenager, and her and Ruben were living with us. I remember I went into the room crying because I heard my parents fighting really, really bad. My sister came and pulled, because my sister heard me like crying from my room, so I remember she came and she pulled me and she took me. She was like, you see, you guys are making Moni cry. You guys shouldn't be fighting like in front of her. I was in my room when they were fighting, but they were fighting so loud that I could like hear. So after that, kind of made my parents like calm down or whatever. And then I remember the day that shit really hit the fan. So this is like when my parents finally like ended their relationship. So I remember I was 8 years old and I was coming back. I had a play date that day. So my mom didn't have a car. My mom never really drove. So I remember my mom like walked to my friend's house, and you know, she picked me up. It was like around Halloween. And the reason why I remember that is because I was dressed as a bunny rabbit. My mom would she would do a lot of homemade costumes. Like, I feel like that's a 90s thing. She would do like a lot of homemade costumes. So I remember she got me like the bunny ears, and then she got me like the bunny tail. So like she pinned like a little bunny tail like on my butt. She picked me up from like my friend's house, and then like we were walking back to my house, and you know, I'm coming in with my little bunny rabbit costume. And then I remember when we got to the house, my sister and Ruben were doing a carne asada. So this is how I remember things. I was 8 years old, you guys, so this is just how I remember things. So I remember we got there, and my sister was just like frantic. Yeah, my sister was like 8. My sister was probably like 19, around there at the time. I was in the kitchen. I was on the kitchen floor playing with Tupperware. My sister and my dad were going at it. And like I wasn't really paying, because you know, when you're a little kid, you're not really paying attention to like adult conversations. So I kind of heard him like yelling, and then I just wasn't paying attention to the conversation. And then I remember shit got real, because remember we were having a carne asada, a barbecue. There was like some freshly made beans. And I remember my sister like had the bowl of beans and she threw them at my dad. And mind you guys, like we've always been super respectful towards my dad. My sister's always been very respectful. But my sister has a very short fuse, like my dad. Don't get me wrong, I'm not too far behind. Like I could also have a short fuse. But I would say it's like my dad, my sister, and then me. So I remember my sister threw like a bowl of beans at my dad's face, and she was like flipping the fuck out on him, and she's like, tell my fucking mom, you've been cheating on her. and this and this and that. And then I just remember my mom, she like was kind of like, what, like what's going on? Like I feel like my mom didn't even really know how to react to it. And then my mom was like, what are you talking about? And then my sister was like, why don't you fucking tell my mom that you were kissing this Caucasian lady in the alley? So basically when Ruben and my sister were like on the grill in the backyard, like we had an alley, like, you know, there's like our house had like an alley in the back. And I guess my sister had seen, because it was nighttime, so my sister seen like a car pull up in the alley through like the cracks of like the fence. So my sister and Ruben went to go see like, what the fuck, who's in the alley? And when they seen, it was my dad kissing a Caucasian lady. So my sister, like, you know, around the same time my sister seen that, me and my mom like were barely getting to the house. And I think my mom was just like, she didn't know how to react to like the situation. So the next day my mom kicked out my dad. And I remember my sister pulls out a picture. I don't know if he was looking, I don't know if she was looking it through his shit or what, but she found a picture. And then she was showing my mom, like, look mom, like my dad's with this lady, this is who he's fucking with, whatever, whatever. And then I remember she had like so basically she had a picture of, you know, this lady, and she had like there was like two kids in the picture. And then I remember my sister, like, I think my sister was very upset. She was a teenager at the time, so it was like teenager shit. And my sister was like, look, and these are my dad's new kids, you know. But she wasn't like dead ass, but like I think she was just kind of fucking with me. My sister would fuck with me a lot when I was little. So I remember I got jealous, like, what do you mean, like, you know? I think my mom, she took my dad's cheating for a lot of years, but I think what did it for her, like what broke the camel's back, was my sister seeing it. Because I think after that, my mom didn't have no other option. My mom was like, fuck, like now my daughter knows, you know? So I think that's when she just like took initiative, and she was like, I'm just gonna like end this marriage. And so I feel like it's hard for me to talk about it now, because I feel like the type of kid that I was, I would like suppress a lot of my feelings. I feel like that was I feel like that was my coping mechanism. I wouldn't deal with my feelings. And I feel like it's true, like what people say. If you don't deal with things when they're happening to you, you're gonna deal with them later on. Like it always comes back to haunt you, you know? So I feel like because I didn't deal with it when I was a little kid, now it kind of like affects me a little bit. And I feel like I barely started realizing that as I got older. I started realizing that it, like, all of this did kind of affect me, because I would always be like, oh, like my parents' divorce didn't affect me. And like I feel like in reality, like it did, because now I just deal with, like, you know, certain feelings or whatever. But I remember the day that my dad officially left the house, and I don't know where my mom was at, but I remember I was at the house, and I seen my dad packing all his stuff. And like I don't know how it was explained to me. I don't know who's the one that even explained it to me, but you know, it was explained to me my dad was gonna leave the house, and my parents were gonna get separated because my dad was cheating. So like it was explained, like I knew what cheating meant at 8 years old. You know, my dad was with other women and he got caught, you know. So I remember when my dad was packing, he was going inside the house, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I remember, like I told you guys, like my highlight of every day was waiting for my dad to get home. Like, so the day that my dad was packing his stuff, I was like a little sad, you know, because I just felt like I wasn't gonna see my dad anymore. So when you're in elementary, you know how they have you, like they have you do like all kinds of like little projects and stuff. When my dad was inside grabbing like more of his stuff, I grabbed a bunch of my artwork that I had, and like some of my homework that had been graded already. I put it in my dad's car, and I put it in my dad's car because I wanted my dad sorry guys if my makeup's fucked up. It's because I'm being a weenie right now. Just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry guys, I just had to get it together. I put my artwork and my graded homework in my dad's car because I didn't want him to forget about me. You know, it was explained to me that, you know, my dad told me, I'm still gonna come see you. I'm still, you know, we're still gonna spend time together, but I didn't want my dad to forget me. I thought he was gonna forget. You know, time went by, and you know, my dad never forgot about me. My dad was one of those dads. I don't think I've ever cried on camera before. This is crazy. My dad is one of those dads that likes being a dad. You know, like, there's some dads who are like, oh, come pick up your kids already, or oh, let me drop off the kids already. Like, my dad was never one of those dads. My dad loved being a dad. Like, he always like picked me up. He always wanted me with him. You know, he would even like pick up the twins and Ruben, which most of you guys know, but in case you didn't, like, those are my nieces and nephews, my older sister's kids. So my dad like was always like, you know, any chance that he got to, you know, come spend time with me, like he would always like spend time with me or whatever. My dad ended up moving in. He ended up moving in with you know, the lady he was talking to. When I was little, my sister, she would like visit, my sister would visit my dad a lot in his new house, but I was never allowed to go in, so sometimes I would have to wait in the car, and I'd be like, who the fuck is my sister with? Like, why is she in the house with my dad? How come I can't go in, right? And I just like never really understood why. And then until later, so then like, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe like 8 months later, like a year later, it's like a little spotty because again, I was only like 8 or 9. I eventually got to go inside and I met my dad's friend. It was his roommate, and my dad introduced me to her. And you know, everything aside, you guys, again, before you guys bash me, I was only 8 or 9 years old, so I didn't really understand, like, you know, I didn't really understand a lot. I was just a little kid. But I will say, like, she was very nice. She had a daughter, and I remember that there was also another teenage girl there who was the same age as her daughter. So there was 2 teenagers, right? He introduced me to his roommate's daughter, And then he introduced me to the other teenager, to the other teenage girl. And the other teenage girl, he introduced me and said that that was his friend's daughter, and that basically she was gonna stay with him and his roommate for a while, and that's why she was living there with them, right? So she was introduced to me as my dad's friend's daughter. I don't know if I'm making sense. So come to find out, and you guys, like, my dad, I will say my dad was a very good dad to me. And I just, whenever I talk about my dad being a good dad to me, I am not taking away that he was a very bad husband and he was a very bad man to women. I'm very aware of that, and yes, he was, you know. So, maybe a few months later, I would hang out, not with his roommate's daughter, but I would hang out a lot with his friend's daughter, right? The one that was living there. Because remember, there was 2 teenagers there. One of them was a white girl, and then the other one was a Mexican girl. The other teenager was a Mexican girl. So I would hang out a lot with the Mexican teenager, right? And so if I was like 8 or 9, she was probably like, maybe like, she was probably like 14, 15 at the time. And me and her got really, really close. And I remember I would always be excited to see her. And during this time, you guys, my dad would tell me like, oh, you know, don't tell your mom that... No, he would tell me, like, if your mom asks you, like, who I'm living with, tell her that I'm living with my friend Renee. Renee was a boy, right? And I was like, why, Dad? Like, me being a little kid, why, Dad? Why do I gotta tell my mom that when you're really living with, you know, this lady? And then my dad would be like, no, it's because you have to tell your mom. And my dad ain't shit for that. I know, you guys. My dad ain't shit for that. But anyways... So, I remember my mom would try to ask me sometimes, like, oh, like, who does your dad live with? And, like, me, I was already trained. And I was like, oh, he lives with his friend Renee. And she's like, oh, okay. And, like, that was it. Well, fast forward a couple months later, after me hanging out with, you know, the Mexican teenager that was living with my dad and the lady he was living with, I would hang out with her a lot. Once, you know, after like me agarró la confianza, like, you know, when she started trusting me more, you know, the Mexican teenager, she ended up telling me, she's like, I want to tell you something, but you can't tell Rafa. And I was like, okay, like what? And I, you know, I was like, you know, again, I was like 8 or 9 when she told me this, and she was like, you can't tell Marbella either. And I was, Marbella, if you guys don't know, that's my older sister, right? So my mom and my dad only have me and my older sister, which my sister Marbella is 12 years apart. If you guys, we're 12 years apart, in case you guys didn't know that information. But anyways, the Mexican teenage girl, I keep calling her the Mexican teenage girl because there was a white teenager living there as well. So the Mexican teenage girl was like, okay, you can't tell Rafa, which is my dad, and you can't tell Marbella. And I was like, okay, what? Just tell me. And she's like, okay, I'm your sister. And I was like, my sister? I was like, I only have one sister, Marbella. And then she was like, no, but I'm your sister too. She's like, but I'm your half sister. She was like, your dad, she's like, so she wouldn't call my dad. She wouldn't call my dad Dad. She would call him Rafa. My dad's name's Rafael. So a lot of my dad's friends would call him Rafa. So, she was like, Rafa had me with my mom, and they were high school sweethearts. And, but to me, you guys, it didn't even click like, oh, my dad had an affair. My mom doesn't know that there's another kid involved. Like, because I was a little kid. Like, I didn't, you know. To me, it was like, wow, I have another sister. Because, like, I always wanted more siblings. And especially because, like, you know, I only had like my sister Marbella. Me and my sister Marbella were really, really close. Like we were super close, but we were 12 years apart, you know? So it was like exciting, like, wow, I have another sister. Like we're a little closer in age. And like, you know, I was so excited. And like, but you know, I kept our secret. I never told my dad. I never told my dad that I knew she was my sister, and I didn't tell my sister Marbella that I knew. So fast forward, I see my dad trying to hang out with my mom a lot. And mind you, they're separated, right? So I seen my dad trying to hang out with my mom a lot, and my dad ain't shit for this, you guys. Like, I know, you know. He would hang out with my mom a lot, and then he would like play my mom, and my mom would be like, "Who do you live with?" And then my dad would be like, "Oh, I live with Renee, whatever, whatever." So I remember one day, okay, so I'm gonna touch a little bit of bases with my mom now. So for those of you guys who don't know, I don't think I've ever even like really shared I don't think I've ever shared this with you guys, and I'm not sure if like we've had a full-on conversation on any vlogs about this. My mom, she was diagnosed with depression ever since I was a little kid. Ever since I can remember, I've always known that my mom had depression. And I was very aware of what depression was even at 8 years old. And I remember my mom, she did get help. She would go to a lot of the meetings. So like, you know, they have like kind of like support groups and like for people who have depression. So she would go to that a lot. She would go to a psychologist. She would go to a therapist a lot. She was put on medication. I remember asking my mom, like as an adult, like, "Mom, how long have you had depression for, do you think?" She was like, "Oh, you know, my mom told me that," she's like, "I was born with depression. I've been having it since I was little." She's like, "But when your dad started cheating on me, it got even worse." So I feel like a lot of my mom's depression most of it did have to do with my dad. I think the other half of the depression from her being like, you know, a little kid, a lot of the shit that happens to us, it all goes back to like our childhood. For those of you guys who don't know, I took child development. I took that shit 2 times, failed both times, but I would pay attention in class. I was just really bad at like the book work. But that class did teach me a lot. So I think a lot of the majority of it did come from my dad. But I think my mom said that she was like born with depression, that she's had it since she was little. I think that has to do with she was born in a very big family. I believe she had like 10 brothers and like 1 sister, and then she was the 12th kid. Just asking her a lot about her childhood, it just sounds like it was just hard for her mom to be a mom to all the kids and give I feel like it was hard for her mom to give every child, how do I say this? Because I don't want to sound like mean or anything. It was just hard for her to give be full mommy mode to each kid because there was so many kids involved. And I think my mom told me like her mom wasn't very affectionate with her, and it was it was only her and her sister, and the rest were boys. So my mom told me that she would have to help my grandma a lot. Her and her sister had to help my grandma a lot with like the other kids, and basically they had to grow up really fast. So I feel like my mom didn't get that love and that nurture that she needed, is that how you say it, nurture? She didn't get that like nurturing she needed, like, you know, the nurturing that you need as a little kid. So I feel like that kind of affected her a lot. The reason why I'm speaking about the depression, you guys, I don't want to get the waterworks going again. I feel like in the Mexican community, and not just the Mexican community, I just feel like the Latin community or Hispanic community, whatever you identify as, I feel like in our community, mental health is not, it's not spoken about enough. I also feel like a lot of the older generation, they don't believe in like mental health. It's kind of like, oh, you're being a weenie, like get over it, life goes on, you know. My mom did, she did go to multiple therapists. She would go to a lot of the group therapies. As I was saying, in our community, mental health is not spoken about enough. And I also feel like what's even less spoken about is kids who grow up with parents with depression and how it could affect the kids. And I don't mean to say this like in a way to, oh, the parents are bad because they had to, like, no, I don't mean it in that way. I feel like the help that, you know, the people with depression get, I feel like that help should also be offered to the kids growing up with parents who have depression, because as much as the parents don't want it to affect the kids, it does. And so I remember when I was little, I feel like it was very hard because I feel like I wasn't really able to be a kid. I feel like my parents would involve me in a lot of shit that I feel like I shouldn't have been a part of. And I think that they did the same with my sister. I feel like my sister was involved in a lot of stuff that they probably shouldn't involve my sister in. So I just feel like they involved us in a lot of their bullshit. My parents kind of exposed me to a lot of their problems, and I just feel like kids shouldn't have to be exposed to that, especially at such a young age. So I remember when I was little, my mom would take me with her to her therapy groups. And I remember being in and you guys, I was little and I would be in there, and basically how it would work is everyone would, like, you know, they would sit like at a long table, and everyone would get a turn to talk. Everyone would get a turn to talk about what they were going through. And, you know, because it was all people with depression, like they would cry. And I feel like sometimes my mom, sometimes I feel like she would take it out on me. And I don't feel like that. She did take it out on me a lot. She would kind of take it out on me. And one time she like took me in, and, you know, it was her turn to talk, and she starts crying. And then I'm like, what? Like, I was like, what? Like, mom, like, I was thinking, like, why is my mom crying? And she's like, my mom just starts saying, like, my daughter, she's such a bad daughter. She doesn't listen to me. You know, I'm going through this, and she makes it worse. And you guys, I'm literally sitting there. I'm 9 years old sitting there, and all these people are looking at me. And then like my mom's like putting me like on blast, you know, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did this turn about me? Like, you know? And you know what? I remember the therapist was there, and like the therapist, like the therapist actually stood up for me, and she was like, you know what? I don't think it's appropriate for you to bring your daughter to these groups. And I don't think even more that it's appropriate that you talk about your daughter while she's here in front of you and she's just a child. Like, I don't think that you should be doing that. And like my mom kind of just like stayed quiet after that. And like after that, my mom never took me to those groups again. And I honestly, I was so happy, because I feel like, you know, I was like 9 years old, and I was just like I was seeing all these people, and I just feel like I wasn't prepared for all of that because I was a little kid, you know. And I feel like this is when you know, me and my mom, we do have a rocky relationship, and it's gotten a lot better throughout the years. It's gotten a lot better throughout the years, but like it's just kind of my childhood that kind of affected it. I remember my mom was hanging out with my dad after they had split up, and you know, my dad was living with the other lady. And I remember one day my mom was like interrogating me, right? And she was like, this was probably like a year into my dad being moved out, right? My dad was trying to be a player, trying to hang out with my mom, and he was living with the other lady. And my mom was like interrogating me like, oh, who does your dad live with? And I was like, Mom, I already told you. And then she was like, but she kept like, usually she would just let it go, but she kept like interrogating me, right? I think like at this point my mom knew something was up, and then she was like, well, but who does your dad live with though? Like, who does he live with? And I was like, oh, he lives with Renee and his friend. And like, okay, so you guys know I never use real names, but I don't know, what should we name her? Sally. I'm just gonna name her Sally. So I was like, oh, my dad lives with Renee and his friend Sally. And my mom's like, Sally? Who's Sally? And I was like, Mom, you don't know Sally? You know, she has blonde hair. She's super nice. And my mom was like, they live together? He lives with a girl? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, why did you lie to me? You told me that he lived with Renee. And I was like, and I kind of stood quiet because I'm like, oh shit, like I fucked up, you know? And at the end of the day, why would my dad even put me in that predicament? You know, my dad's an asshole for that. After that night that I told my mom that my dad was living with Sally, everything changed for me. Everything changed for me. My mom's behavior towards me changed. And you guys, like, again, I'm not bashing my mom. This is just stuff that happened. This is what happened. And you know, my mom was dealing with a lot of stuff, so I try not to blame her for it. But after that night, like, my life changed and my relationship with my mom changed in a severe way. And I remember the next day, my mom wouldn't talk to me. And I remember I kept trying to talk to my mom, and I'd be like, Mom, 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 Mom. And my mom was like, don't talk to me. And I was like, what? Like, why, Mom? So my mom was like, don't talk to me because you knew that your dad was cheating on me, living with another lady, and you didn't tell me. And I was like, but Mom, like, that's not my fault. Like, I didn't know I was supposed to tell you. Like, because, like, you guys, I was little. I didn't really, like, understand so much, you know? So I was like, Mom, like, well, I didn't know. Like, you know, my dad told me not to say anything. Like, I didn't know you were supposed to know. My mom said a lot of hurtful things, you guys. And I know that she was not, I know she wasn't sane. And I know she wasn't in her right mind during that time. But she told me like a lot of mean things, and I feel like had I been a teenager, I would have like processed it a little better. But because I was a little kid, I didn't really I didn't really get why she was being mean to me. But she basically like took it out on me of what was going on with my dad. And I remember my mom was like, and because of you, your dad cheated on me, and now he left you, and he left me. And I was thinking, like, my dad didn't leave me. Like, I still see my dad. And then I was like, no, my dad didn't leave me. And then she was like, yes, he did leave you. He left both of us. And I remember, like I told you guys, like, when I was little, I remember when I was little, I was a chicken, you guys. Like, I would watch a lot of scary movies when I was little, so I was like very scared of the dark, and I was like very scared to sleep alone in my room. So I remember like the next day after I had told her, like, you know, about my dad living with Sally, I remember the next day, like that night, she had been ignoring me the whole day. She was like, don't talk to me, and this and this and that. I remember that night I got in my PJs, and I went to go I'm gonna try not to get into detail because I don't want to like speak ill of my mom. But I remember that night I got into bed with my little PJs, and you know, I tried to cuddle with her, and she was like, get out of my bed, like you're not allowed to sleep with me no more. And I was like, why, mom? And she was like, because you don't really love me. Like, you chose your dad over me. And, you know, your dad left us and this and this and that. And, like, so basically that night, from then on, I went to go sleep in my own bed. And I remember my mom didn't talk to me, you guys, for, like, maybe, like, a month. The only thing she would talk to me for was just to tell me that the food was ready. And that was it. Like, there wasn't like, how was your day? You know, nothing. Like, it was just, there's your food and that's it. Like, my mom would not talk to me. She didn't talk to me for like a whole month. And I remember I would try to talk to my mom and she would just ignore me. And like, I would just like, I kept trying like to kiss her ass, you know, and I would try to like beg her to talk to me. And I hated being at home with her. Like, I hated it because she was just like very mean to me. I feel like she was taking it out on me, what she was going through with my dad. And I could have told my sister what was going on at home, because by then my sister, she was already living, she was living with Ruben at the time. So, and my sister lived like down the street. So my sister's house was basically my getaway. I would always go to my sister's house. Like, I would always walk to my sister's house because I hated being at home with my mom during this time, because my mom was just like very mean to me. And I wanted to tell, like, I remember I would go to my friend's house when I was little and I would be like, man, like, I wish my mom was like that, because I would see my friends. Sorry guys, I'm like trying my hardest not to be like a weenie right now. I would see my friends with their moms, and their moms were just like so loving, and you know, and I know my mom was going through she was going through like a crisis. But it doesn't take away the fact that I needed my mom, you know? Even though she was going through what she was going through, like, I still needed my mom. And I remember, like, I would try to spend the most time away from home. I hated being home. And, like, when I was home, my mom wouldn't talk to me. And I just remember my mom being in her room, crying at the top of her lungs. And it was to the point where my mom wouldn't even try to hide it. Like, I remember being like little, and so when I was little, I remember Nintendo 64 was what's in. So I remember playing like Nintendo 64, and like my mom would just be crying super, super loud. I was little, you guys, like, I didn't know how to help my mom, you know? I didn't know how to comfort her. I, like, you know, as much, I, like, it was just, she was going through her thing, and I feel like I was going through my own thing, you know? I feel like I was, and I'm not trying to take away from my mom, what my mom went through, but I feel like I was also like a little kid going through my parents divorcing, my dad's living with someone else. Now my mom's not talking to me. My mom's treating me like she hates me. And I had to deal with my mom's depression on top of that. So I just feel like, you know, I was like dealing with a lot on my own. My sister's house was my escape, and my sister had her own shit going on at her house, and that was a whole nother story at my sister's house. But one thing I will say, like, I was not my sister's responsibility, because she was just my sister, you know? And I was not my sister's responsibility. So whatever she had going on, like, I don't even blame her or anything, because she didn't even have to take care of me. She didn't have to have me with her all the time. And when I would go to my sister's house, it was just kind of like a relief to me. It was hard being there too, but I remember my sister would give me tasks as like a kid, because I was like the oldest one. So, you know, when I would go to my sister's house, my sister just had like a couple rules. Help clean, and we all had like a different room to clean. So like, help clean, and you know, help me watch the kids. Even though I was a little kid, like I would help her like watch the twins. Even though we were only like 5 years apart, I would help her watch the twins. So that was like my little getaway. And then when I was with my dad, it was another getaway, because I feel like with my dad I could just be a kid. I didn't have to worry about anything else. During that time, my dad would ask me how I was doing and how I was taking the divorce, and like he would try to ask me what was going on, but I just feel like I didn't feel safe talking to him or my sister about it. So I just kind of dealt with it on my own. I never told anybody what I was going through. I remember I didn't even open up to my sister about how it was being at home with my mom and like the way she was treating me. And at the same time, I feel like I didn't tell my sister just because I know my sister was very overprotective of me when I was little. So I know that my sister probably would have like got on my mom about like how she was like treating me. So I feel like I just never dealt with it. And I think the main reason why I have a problem like crying, or like I don't feel comfortable crying, because I remember I would see my mom cry a lot because of depression. I guess my logic as a little kid was, oh, I'm not gonna ever let myself cry like my mom because then I'm gonna get depression. And like that was like my logic as a little kid. So I remember like as a little kid, whenever I felt like I wanted to cry, I would like hold it in, and like I would train myself. Like I would train myself to hold it in, because like in my head and my logic was, if I cry too much, or if I let myself cry, I'm gonna end up like my mom. Growing up, I had a very hard time expressing myself. I had a very hard time showing affection. My dad was very affectionate with me, but my mom was not. And I feel like it's kind of a more, I guess like your mom, I guess moms are usually the more affectionate ones. But my mom was a little more on the cold side. And I know that has a lot to do with the way she was brought up. And even though my dad was very, and I have no problem showing affection to my dad. But with my mom, it felt very weird. And it's like sad to feel like that towards your mom, because usually like, you know, a lot of my friends, like they're always like hugged up on their mom and, you know, I love you, mom, and like their mom is their best friend. And I just feel like I didn't have that relationship with my mom growing up. So once my mom found out that, you know, my dad was living with Sally, they fell off again. Then she ended up finding out about my half sister, and my mom also took that very, very hard. I could only imagine how hard it was for my mom to find out that her husband of like so many years had another kid, because basically me and my full sister Marbella were 12 years apart. I'm like the youngest, and then my dad, he had my half sister before I was born. So my half sister is like, you know, a few years younger than Marbella. So my mom took that very hard. So my dad ended up staying with Sally. They were together from the time I was 8 years old, all the way till I was, I want to say about 15, 16. So what ended up happening was my dad, on this particular night, I remember like it was yesterday, and I was gonna be a senior. So I remember during that time I was going to summer school. I was up late that night, and my sister called me and she's like, I need to tell you something. And then I was like, yeah, what? And then she was like, Sally passed away. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I just seen her. And then she was like, no, like Sally passed away. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, well, what happened? Like, I was just so shocked, you guys, because like I had literally just seen her. There was like nothing wrong with her. Well, from what I knew, there was nothing wrong with her, you know? During that night, my sister had actually talked to her because she had just had gordo. My gordo was probably like a week or two old. Like, he was a baby. My sister had called Sally before Sally went to bed. My sister was getting advice on like what kind of milk to give gordo. Basically, Sally gave my sister like advice on like what milk she should try or some shit, something like that. And my dad said after Sally got off the phone with my sister that they got in bed. And I remember my dad's room, my dad had like a little table, and his little table had like a bunch of munchies on it, because my dad, like, he's a big sweets person, so he had like pan and cookies and stuff. So my dad said that before they went to sleep, they were in bed eating like pan dulce, you know, like Mexican bread. They were in bed eating pan dulce, watching TV, and that they went to sleep. And my dad said that he woke up like, I don't know, maybe around like 1 in the morning, and he said that it sounded like she was like choking on something. So he got up and, like, you know, turned on the lights, and he said it seemed like she was like choking on something, but she wouldn't like wake up. So my dad was like what the fuck, like, what's going on? And at the time, her daughter and her daughter's like baby daddy were living with them. So her daughter came in with her baby daddy, and I know her baby daddy tried to give her CPR. The ambulance got there, and when the ambulance got there, they pronounced her dead. After they did the autopsy and stuff, it was determined that she had a massive heart attack in her sleep. And the crazy thing is that my dad had said a couple weeks before they had gone to the doctor together, and they had a physical. She had a physical and my dad had a physical. They had the same doctor. And the doctor had told her that she was healthier than my dad. And I remember the next day, you guys, dad would be the one to take me to school. So I remember my dad picked me up the next day. My dad looked like so sad, and I didn't know how to talk to my dad about it, because, like, you know, again, I had a problem like expressing myself, and I didn't really know how to comfort people. And to this day, I'm very horrible at comforting people, but I think I'm a little better at it than what I was back then. And I remember, like, I got in the car and I didn't even bring it up to my dad. It was just like silence. And I remember the whole ride to school, me and my dad just sat in silence. And I feel like my dad was shocked, because I feel like he didn't even know how to react to it. Like, he was just very shocked. Like, but I could tell my dad was like very sad. And, you know, once we pull up to school, my dad was like, you know Sally passed away, right? And I was like, yeah. And then I think I asked him, like, are you okay? And he just kind of like stayed quiet, and he got a little teary-eyed. And I think my dad just didn't want to like cry in front of me. Basically, that's what happened with my dad and Sally. So fast forward, you know, Sally passed away, and later on, a few months later, guess who comes to knock at my door? Lord behold, it was my dad. And I'm like, oh, hey, dad, like, I didn't know you were gonna come pick me up. And then he was like, oh, like, I'm here, is your mom here? And I was like, what the fuck do you want to talk to my mom for? And I was like, yeah, why? And like, me, you guys, ever since I was a little kid, I was happy when my mom and dad split up, because my mom and dad would fight so much. Like, I always hear like people say like, oh, we're staying for the kids, we're staying for the kids. In my honest opinion, I feel like if you're like a couple that fights a lot in front of the kids, I feel like you staying for the kids is the worst thing you could do. So I was just like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean you're here for my mom? You know? And I didn't really get into my parents' business like that, because at the end of the day, you guys, the way I see it is my dad is my dad. And I feel like whatever him and my mom got going on, that's between them. I'm not in that marriage. That has nothing to do with me. I'm just the kid. So I wouldn't get into like their relationship. So I remember my mom and dad started hanging out. During that time, my mom was like not fucking with my dad, like, but she would let him come around. So like she would I know my mom wanted to have my dad around because she would like let him come around, and like she would go out to eat with him and this and that. Maybe like a year or two after Sally passing away, my dad tried to like get back with my mom, and then I remember my mom would be like, I'm never getting back with you and this and that. So I would always be like, okay, cool, my mom is not gonna get back with my dad, like I'm safe, I don't have to worry about it, like, because I did not want my parents getting back together, especially after everything that I went through with them as like a kid. So I remember I was still a teenager at this point, and I went away for the weekend. I don't know where I went. I think I was with my sister. I went away somewhere. We went away for the weekend, and then I came back. When I came back from this trip, you guys, I knew that my mom and dad would hang out, but my mom would always be like, I don't like your dad like that, we're just friends, whatever, whatever. And my mom like would never give my dad no play. She was always mean to him. So I really thought that they were just friends and that was it. Well, when I came back from this trip, I remember I got home at night and I went into my mom's room, and this is where I'm like gonna air out my parents' shit. I went into my mom's room, and on the nightstand there was like condom wrappers, right? It wasn't like the actual condom, it was like the condom wrappers. And I looked at it and I was like in disbelief, you guys. And like one thing about my mom is like my mom was born like very old school. She got married a virgin. She was like always like shy to talk to men, like, you know, like my mom was just very like, you know, a small town girl, like you only get married once, you don't get divorced, like, you know, you don't sleep around. Like my mom was very, very, very old school. My mom like never went dating. Like she only dated like one guy, which I did not like his ass, but that was like later on. But anyway, so I get home and I see these condom wrappers and it hits me, and I was like, oh, my mom and my dad are smashing. So you guys, I was so fucking pissed because it was just in my head. I was thinking like, we're not doing this shit again. I'm not gonna go through what I went through in my childhood again. I'm not gonna relive that. That was very traumatic. I'm not gonna go through your guys' bullshit again. Like, absolutely not. So I fucking come out. I tell my mom and I look at her straight in the face and I'm like, do you and my dad got something going on? She's like, no. Why? And then I'm like, why is there condom wrappers on your nightstand then? You guys, mind you, my mom like would never talk to me about sex. Like the only thing she had ever told me about sex was like, you cannot have sex till you get married. That was like the only thing we ever talked about. But me and my mom didn't have that type of relationship. Like, so my mom's like jaw hit the floor when I told her that. And I was just like so upset with her. And I was like, you slept with my dad? And then she was like, me and your dad, you know, we were married for so many years. And I was like, I don't care if you guys, I remember I got crazy with my mom. I was like, I don't care if you guys were married. Like, after everything he did to you, you're gonna really do that? Like, I can't believe you're gonna do this to yourself. Like, I was just so mad at my mom because it's kind of like, have you guys ever had like a best friend and your best friend keeps going back to this toxic ex, and it's like you're the one that has to deal with the consequences because your best friend, as much as you love her and as much as you're gonna be there for her, is just like, you're the one that has to deal with the broken pieces, and you know what I mean? So it's like, I just remembered everything from my childhood and the way she treated me and the way she acted with me during that time, because she was going through it with my dad, and you know, all the crying she did, all the depression that she went through. Like, I was just like, I can't believe you're doing this to yourself. And I remember I told her, like, you don't have no dignity. Like, I just went in on my mom. I was so mad, but I was just an angry teenager, and I was like, I can't believe you don't have no dignity for yourself. How can you do this to yourself? I don't want you getting back with my dad. Like, I literally went in on her. And I will say she did respect my feelings, because she didn't like really push the issue. She didn't get crazy with me. She just like left it at that. I was very, very angry. And I remember the next day I seen my dad, and then I never really told my dad about, like I said, you guys, I would never really get into my dad and my mom's relationship. I never told them anything about the way they handled their relationship. Like, I would like literally just stay out of it. And then I remember you know, the next day I seen my dad, and then it was just like me and my dad. And then my dad was like, I want to like talk to you about something. And I think it was like an awkward conversation for my dad. And then he's like, you know, your mom told me that you found condoms, you know, in the room, and I just wanted to talk to you about it. Like, you know, me and your mom, we were married for a lot of years, and, you know, we're trying to work it out. And, you know, yeah, me and your mom did, you know, we did have, you know, we were intimate with each other. And I'm just thinking like, oh my God, I do not want to hear this. Like, because like me and my parents, like, we would not like talk about that, you know, like not. So I remember like I never told my dad anything about him and his relationship with my mom. I remember this day I did tell him, and I was like, you know what, Dad, I don't like you hanging out with my mom. I don't like you having sex with my mom. I don't want you guys to be around each other. Like, I don't want you guys to get back together. Like, I am not okay with this. And I think that was like the first time I really told my dad like how I felt about it. And he was like, okay, Mija, like, I respect how you feel, but me and your mom were adults. And I feel like they both kind of like I think they both kind of shrugged me off. Like, they did respect my feelings. They respected that I was upset and that I felt that way. But they were both like, okay, you're upset, but we're adults and we're gonna do what we're gonna do. Basically, that's the outcome that it was. So my mom had a very serious obsession with me getting pregnant. It was like, I couldn't go to the movies because I was gonna get pregnant. I couldn't go to the mall because I was gonna get pregnant. Like, I couldn't even breathe the same air as another guy because I was gonna get pregnant. And a lot of my mom's insecurities, she would kind of like project it on me. And I know she was just worried about me. One day I got tired of it. Like, I got tired of it. And I remember one day I came back home from cruising. I had went cruising. I told the story before. I went cruising, and I remember I put the clock back like 2 hours. And by this time, you guys, I believe I was like 18 at the time. So I wasn't really underage anymore. I had just turned 18. And but I was still on lockdown at the time. So I put the clock back 2 hours, and I remember I got away with it for a very long time. But on this night, I don't know how I got caught, but my mom noticed that, you know, I fucking put the clock back. So I remember I got home like at 1 in the morning from cruising, and my mom was ready to whoop some ass. And I remember my mom was like, oh, you know, she would always kick me out of the house. Like, as a teenager, any like slight thing that I did, I'm getting kicked out. I wouldn't actually leave, but she would always be like, I don't fucking want you here. I feel like it would just make me clash with my mom a lot. This night, she was like, I don't want you in the house. Like, when I come back from work tomorrow, your shit better be gone. And like, she hella went in on me. She's like, you're a hoe. So the next day she went to work. I grabbed my shit and I really left. And I remember I moved in with my best friend at the time. Me and my friend are still close. But yeah, so I remember she took me in, and I was living with my friend, with my Salvadorian friend. Her mom made the best Salvadorian food. And shout out to my friend Diana and her mom and her dad for taking me in. So I lived with them for a while. My dad, he would like look for me a lot, and my dad was like, Mija, like, why don't you just move in with me? Because my dad he had the house that him and Sally were living in. After she passed away, my dad was still living there. So my dad was like, why don't you just live with me? Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Just help me around the house a little bit. You know, I need a woman at the house. Like, you know, if you could help me clean up a little bit, maybe help me pay a utility, because I was already working at the time. Help me pay a utility, and like that's all I asked for. I ended up moving in with my dad, and during that time I was not talking to my mom. Me and my mom were like bumping heads really bad. So I was like hanging out with my dad a lot. My dad was like, oh, I'm gonna go visit your sister, which is my half sister. Oh, I'm gonna go visit your half sister, like, do you want to come with me? And I was like, yeah, like, because you know, overall, me and my half sister, like, you know, we were always cool. And, you know, I loved my half-sister. And I remember around that time, my dad was still hanging out with my mom. But I didn't really know what was going on with my mom a lot, because me and my mom were not talking because she was mad at me because I left the house. Mind you, she kicked me out, but she like was not talking to me because I left the house. But during the time that we were going to go visit my half-sister, I would hear my dad on the phone with my half-sister's mom a lot, right? And my dad and her were cool, but that's all I knew, that they were cool, and that was it. My dad had kind of been telling me like, oh, I think me and your sister's mom, like, we might work things out. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, like, we're gonna work things out. So I remember my half-sister, me and her were talking, and then I was like, you know, my dad and your mom have been talking a lot. And she was like, yeah, but my mom doesn't like my dad like that. But I think she was just going off of what her mom told her, because I feel like her mom was making it seem one way to my sister. And then I feel like my dad was telling me the truth, you know? And I remember I told my sister, I was like, I don't know. I was like, my dad has been talking to your mom a lot on the phone. My half-sister was like, no, my mom even told me she doesn't like my dad like that, and she's not attracted to my dad, and, you know, she doesn't like him like that. And I was like, okay, I just left it at that. When I got back from my trip, I was talking to my sister Marbella, and then my sister Marbella was like, oh, I think my mom and dad are gonna get back together. And I was like, my dad's not gonna get back with my mom. My dad's working things out with our sister's mom. And my sister, she wasn't aware of all of that because she wasn't really around she wasn't around that. And, you know, I was the one living with my dad, so I know what was going on, and my dad was kind of telling me, but I wasn't really talking to my mom at the time, so I didn't know what was going on with my mom and dad. So I tell my sister Marbella, I'm like, what do you mean my mom and dad are getting back together? Like, my dad's hanging out with our sister's mom, and he's talking about getting back with her. And again, going back to my dad being a whore, she's like, what? Like, and I remember my sister Marbella got very upset. And I think one of my sister Marbella, I think that her dream was always for my mom and dad to get back together. She took this very, very hard. And my sister ended up telling my mom, like, bro, my dad's fucking playing you again. You know, he's talking to, you know, our sister's mom. And oh my god, you guys, my dad had already cheated on my mom with this lady before, so she was like very upset. And then I remember during this time, my dad was losing the house that he had got with Sally. I remember one day my dad came in my room and he's like, I need to talk to you about something. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna end up moving in with your sister's mom in LA. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? Like, and I was like, so you're just gonna leave me? And like, that's just me being like, you know, an 18-year-old, like, I'm a baby, you're gonna leave me? And then my dad was like, well, you know, we're gonna work things out, like, you know. And then I remember I told my dad, and I was like, Dad, but this lady's talking bad about you. Like, she's not even telling my sister the truth about you guys. Like, you know what she told my sister? She told her that she doesn't like, that she's not attracted to you, and she doesn't like the way you dress, and that she would never get back with you and give you a chance. I remember my dad's face, and I feel like I kind of hurt his feelings, which my intention was not to hurt his feelings. To me, I was like trying to put my dad on game, like, bro, she's talking bad about you, and she's saying how she's not attracted to you, and this and this and that. And I feel like my dad didn't believe me. I think my dad thought that I was just being like spiteful, and he didn't believe me. And he's like, well, I don't know, I'm just letting you know that, you know, at this, you know, by this time of the month, like, you know, we need to move out of the house. So I remember I was so fucking pissed with my dad that because I was like thinking of my dad too. I'm like, bro, you have no fucking dignity. This lady's just talking shit about you and she's saying that she doesn't even like you. She's not attracted to you like that. When I told my sister that my dad was working things out with this lady, I don't know how my sister and then my sister's mom ended up like talking on the phone. I don't remember who called who or what, but my sister got into it with her big time, and my sister basically told off the lady. She told off the lady and they went in on each other like really, really bad. My sister Marbella, it affected her relationship with my dad. So I remember, you guys, after my dad moved, I didn't talk to my dad for 2 years because I was like very upset with him. The way that me and my dad ended up talking again is, a lot of people think that dreams don't mean anything, but I feel like I think otherwise. And I remember 2 years after me not talking to my dad, I had a dream. And I dreamed my stepmom, Sally. Sally was always very nice. Like, she was always very nice, you know, bullshit aside, she was always very nice. She was always very good to me and the twins and my sister. Like, you know, she was a very nice lady. I remember this dream very vividly. I remember we were sitting at the table in my dream, and I was crying to her, and she was like, why are you crying? And I was like, and I told her, because me and my dad are not talking. She held my hand in my dream and she was like, I'm gonna see what I could do. A couple days later, my dad calls me. Mind you, I hadn't talked to my dad in 2 years. My dad calls me and he's like, hey mija, like, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I was wondering if I could see you. And I remember during that time I was working at Cricket. I was working in a mall. So I remember my dad, he came from LA, and he came to visit me at work, and I told my boss, like, hey, is it cool if I have like a lunch? And he's like, yeah. So I went to go have lunch with my dad, and I just like felt it inside of me where I had to tell my dad that I dreamed about Sally. I remember I told my dad, I was like, Dad, like, I had a dream about Sally. And he's like, what did you dream? And I feel like my dad, he's kind of like superstitious like me. And I remember I told my dad my dream, and I was like, I had a dream that I was talking to her and I was crying to her and I was telling her that I was sad because I hadn't talked to you in 2 years, and she told me that she was gonna see what she could do about it. You know, a couple of days later you call me and you tell me you're gonna come. I was like, and I feel like she had something to do with it. And I remember me and my dad just crying. Like, we were crying together. It was hurting him, if not more, that, you know, we weren't talking. And after that, like, me and my dad, like, we reconnected again. My sister would always say, like, oh, you know, we have bad luck with men because of everything my dad did. And, you know, we have bad luck in men because, you know, all the shit that my dad did to other ladies. I feel like growing up, I would always hear how kids with divorced parents, how it affected them growing up. And I feel like me, I was like very in denial because I would try to like brush it off, like, oh, not me, I'm fine, you know. My sister was always very open with the struggles she had with my parents divorcing. I always brushed it off like, oh, I'm okay, because I think my logic was, if I say it out loud, it makes it real. And as I started getting older, I kind of started seeing stuff for what it really was. So for example, my sister would always say, like, we have bad luck with men because, you know, everything that my dad did to other ladies. So, you know, now we're paying for everything that he did. And I just feel like I don't believe that. At least I don't believe it to an extent, because I would say, like, I can't speak for my sister, but like for me, I've met good men in my life. I've met like a lot of good men in my life that would have made a very great husband, a very great baby dad. I think where I believe it a little bit is the type of men that we choose. Because I heard, like, they say it's a scientific fact that women are most likely to choose men that are like their fathers. And I remember when I heard this, like, you know, I don't know, when like my early 20s, I'm 35 now, but in my early 20s, I would always hear like, oh, women are always gonna, you know, they're most likely to choose men that are like their dad. And I'd be like, fuck no, I would never date someone like my dad. I will never be with a cheater. And I think as I started getting older, and I'm talking about like my late 20s, I started seeing like the pattern. And I'm like, one thing about my dad is he's always been a provider. My dad has always been a provider. He's always been super affectionate, but my dad has always been a ladies man. And I started seeing the pattern where the guys that I've dated or been in relationships with, they're providers. They provide, they're affectionate, but they're ladies man. So I feel like it's not that we get bad. So I wouldn't say like, oh, we get bad luck. And because no, I've met good men, you guys. And I think for women or men that they're like, I want to be in a relationship, I want to be married. Like, I think it's hard for people who want that and see me single and they're like, oh, poor Mo, everyone sleeps on Mo. Oh, poor Mo, you know, she can't find a good man. You guys, believe me when I say that is not the problem. Like, good men have came and went in my life. I feel like it's just me, the type of men that I choose. I have very bad taste in men. I really need to sign my rights away for like dating, because I feel like instead of me going for like the nice guy and the guy that's gonna treat me right, I think that to some point I kind of self-sabotage and like choose the men that I know that are no good for me. And I've been like trying my best to like work on it. And you know, I feel like I need to let myself be loved. And I feel like sometimes I have a hard time with that. Sometimes I have a hard time with letting myself be loved. I feel like I have a hard time with expressing myself. So I think I had a conversation with my tia, which is my dad's like baby sister. My tia is like the nicest lady. She's like a super religious Catholic lady. And you know, my tia, she's just very loving. And I remember, I think I was like 28 or 29 at the time. And my tia calls me. She was living in Chicago at the time. So my tia calls me and she's like, Mia, how come you never answer my calls? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, tia. And she's like, do you ever even call your dad? And I was like, yeah, like I do once in a while. And like, what about your mom? Do you ever call your mom? And I'm like, I mean, once in a while. Like, you know, I just kind of see my parents when I see them. But, you know, I try to call them sometimes. And then I remember my tia was like, Mija, like, what's, like, I'm worried about you. And like my tia, she's like super like always worried about us, you know. And I was thinking, ay tia, like no, like, you know, you're exaggerating. And she was like, no, mija, like seriously, like I'm worried about you. She was like, and I think my tia is the first one that kind of made me open my eyes a little bit. And she was like, I just feel like you're very detached. And I was like, what do you mean I'm detached? And she's like, yeah, like I just feel like you're very detached. I don't think you realize it, but you are. Like you're always like in your own little world. Like, you know, you don't really get too close to anybody, like to your family. You're just like, you're a little like kind of like far away from everybody, you know, like what would be the reason for that? I'm not detached. What do you mean? Like I didn't understand, you know. I think my tia, you guys, and this is how long it took me to talk about like my childhood. And you know what, you guys, like there's people who have been through way worse shit. I don't even want to make it seem like, oh, I'm a victim, I had the worst childhood, because there's people who have had like worse childhoods. So regardless of how my childhood was, like I wouldn't change it, because there's other situations that are way worse than mine. I remember like I kind of opened up, like my tia was like, what's wrong, Mija? Like how was your childhood? And I feel like my tia was the only one that ever asked me, you know. And then like I kind of started opening up to my tia, and I'm like, you know what, tia, like because you know everything my dad did, like my mom, when she was going through her depression, like I feel like my mom was very mean to me, and I feel like she would push me away. She said like some very hurtful things. My tia was like, yeah, mija, but you know, your mom did the best that she could. And I feel like that triggered me a little bit, because I felt like, no, she could have done better, because like in my head I was thinking like, there's people with cancer, there's people with deadly diseases, there's people that I have dealt with like so much worse, and they don't treat their kids like this. Like there's people who have shitty ass lives and they never let their kids see, or like don't take it out on their kids. Because basically I was getting defensive, like, I don't care how bad you're going through it in life, don't take it out on your kids. And I kept telling my tia that like, you should never take it out on your kids. And my tia was like, I know, mija, like I totally understand, and trust me, like my relationship with my own mom wasn't the best, and people don't even know how she used to treat me. But you know, you gotta remember, like, you know, moms don't come, she was like, moms don't come with booklets, you know. And like, your mom did the best that she could, you know. And I was a little angry with my tia, because I feel like I was angry not at my tia, but I just feel like it was kind of like, oh, you know, the way I took it was I was getting defensive, you know. This is just me being, now I see things differently, but during that time it was just like, oh, so it's just fuck my feelings again, and fuck what I went through. And regardless of the situation, I just really thought about it. And you know, after I got off the phone with my tia, I kept thinking about it, and for days I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it, about what my tia told me. And I kind of had to sit down with myself. And you know, your mom was going through depression, and she was going through mental illness, and because of that, you know, she wasn't able to be the best. Because of that, she wasn't able to be the best version of herself. And I think I was torn between acknowledging that my mom was going through her depression and she couldn't be the best version of herself. So, you know, I can't blame her. But I was also torn with, okay, I feel like adult me understands that, you know, my mom was going through, you know, her mental health. And because of that, she wasn't able to be the best version of herself as a mom. Little Mo still didn't have her mom. And it's not even like, I'm not crying over adult Mo. What hurts me is that I didn't have like, I didn't have my mom growing up. Like, she was there, but she wasn't there. Like, her body was there, but her mind wasn't there. So I feel like I'm torn with depression robbed me of my childhood. Because, you know, depression took over my mom, and it robbed me of my mom. It robbed me of having a loving relationship with my mom. I'm crying over like 10-year-old, 9-year-old Mo. Not even me. It's just, you know, I feel like I really needed my mom when I was little, and it just robbed me of it, you know. And I know like a lot of people on here, like, you know, a lot of people, like, they hate my dad, and I get it, you know. I feel like a lot of people take very personal my dad cheating, because I feel like maybe somebody wronged them. Like, it could have been like their husband or like their dad. So I feel like a lot of people hate my dad because they kind of take it personal on what he did. And I feel like the people that take it super personal, it's like maybe they were wronged by a man in their life, whether it be their husband or their dad. One thing I could say about my dad is he was a very good dad to me. So it's like, I had my dad growing up. My dad was wrong for everything that he did to my mom, but I feel like my dad isn't the one that did that stuff to me. I feel like I still stand on how I feel. Like, try your best to not take it out on your kids, you know. And I know it's easy for me to say because I'm not a mom yet, but whatever you're going through in life, like, you know, just try your best not to take it out on the kids or for your kids to see that, because your kids will remember, you know. My parents, they had me like later on in life, so it's actually funny. My mom had me at 35, which is how old I am now, and then my dad is probably like 3 years older than my mom. So my dad was almost 40, I believe, when they had me. Now as an adult, I had a lot of resentment towards my mom. I just kept remembering what my tia told me, and it finally clicked into my head when my tia said she did the best that she could, you know. So for a long time I felt like, no, she could have done better, she could have done better. But I feel like that was her capacity. She was at her capacity to do the best that she could. Like, she couldn't do any better because that was where she was at. I also had to remind myself that, you know, my parents are getting older. And you know, I have friends who have lost a parent, you know, and I don't want to leave this world. You never know who's gonna leave first. It could be me or my parents, you know. I don't want to leave this world with having a messed up relationship with my parents. I don't want my parents to leave this world with also that, like, us having a bad relationship. So I told myself, like, I need to start forgiving my parents, and especially my mom. Not that it was more of my mom's fault than my dad's, but I just feel like I had a lot of resentment towards my mom. And I just kind of like started seeing my mom, like, my mom's getting older and I don't want us to have that type of relationship. And I kind of started seeing it, like, have you guys ever had like an ex? And I know this kind of sound crazy, but have you guys ever had an ex who did you like dirty, and you know, you broke up and you don't talk anymore, but you always feel like, no, but they have to say sorry to me, because that's the only way I'm gonna get over it. They have to say sorry for me. And then you always have a friend that's like, but what do you need them to say sorry for? Like, you have to do the work. Like, you be okay with it in your heart. Like, you don't need them to say sorry. Like, whatever they got going on, that's between them, but you forgive them in your heart. So I kind of just started seeing it like that. Like, I need to let it go with my mom. Like, I need to let it go. And I started doing the work. Like, not even, like, my mom, she didn't even care. I feel like I started putting in the work. And I feel like my mom, she would fight with me a lot. Like, if there's anyone in this world that knows how to push my buttons, it's my mom. Like, my mom, like, and you know, people try to hurt my feelings roasting me, but my mom is like my biggest hater. Like, she knows how to humble you, she knows how to roast you, like. And like, me and my mom, like, we would always argue. We had like a really fucked up relationship for like a lot of years, like probably all the way up into, like, I'm 35 now, so probably all the way up to like me being 29. We had a really fucked up relationship. Even as I was in my 20s, she would take a lot of stuff out on me. And as I started getting older, I kind of started like fighting back, like, you know. And it wasn't even fighting back, like, oh, talking shit back to her. But it just got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to argue with you no more, because I feel like arguing with you is just taking a lot of energy and mental peace out of me. So I'm not going to argue with you. And I would just walk away from her whenever she would try to push my buttons. And it got to the point, and I think this is when my mom kind of understood, like, okay, like, I'm kind of being a little mean. There was one argument that me and my mom had really, really bad. And it was basically her picking on me. And I remember everyone like defended me, like the twins defended me. You know, I think even my sister like stood up for me during this argument. And it got to the point with that argument that I was like, I can't be around my mom because it's ruining my mental sanity. So I remember I stayed away from my mom for a couple months. And I remember it was Mother's Day. And my mom was already living in LA, and I think I was living in SAC at the time. And I didn't go visit her because it was just like, I couldn't do it, you guys. I know it sounds very mean, but it was just for my mental sanity. I just couldn't be around my mom. And I think, well, the twins told me that for that Mother's Day, you know, the twins went to LA, and they were like, I guess my mom was like, oh, you know, where's Monique at? And then I think the twins were like, well, you know, mama, do you remember all that stuff you told her? Like, you know, you kind of hurt her feelings and she just doesn't want to be around you right now. And she said that for her mental health, she needs to stay away from you. And they like explained it to her like that. So I think after that, my mom kind of was like, okay, she's not a little kid anymore, you know? And I think after that, my mom started being a little nicer to me, like a little bit. And after that, she would kind of try to bicker with me. And instead of arguing back with her, I would just keep my composure. And I would be like, and you know what, you guys? I think, honestly, working in customer service fucking trained me. Because, you know, when you work in customer service, especially when you work in a phone center. I used to work at a call center. And they train you, like, they basically train you. You know, sometimes the customers call and they're in a bad mood because of their situation. And they want to get you hooked. They would say like that. They want to get you hooked. So they're going to tell you mean things because they want to get you hooked, and they want you to argue back with them because that's what's going to make them feel better. But don't get hooked. Just remain calm, and, you know, just remain calm, and like you're going to get through the call just by staying calm. And I think that fucking trained me, because I remember there was like another time where my mom tried to push my buttons. I think she was fighting with Brittany over I don't know what. Brittany literally didn't do nothing to her. Because I'm telling you, my mom, like, she gets in her moods where she's like very grouchy and she just wants to take things out on people. So I think she got into a fight with Brittany over I don't know what. And she was being so mean to Brittany that day. I remember like it was yesterday. All I did was I happened to walk by and she literally started throwing jabs at me. I literally only walked by and she started throwing jabs at me. And I looked at her like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck did I do? Like, now how did I get brought into this, you know? And I remember she was like going in on me, and I was so proud of myself. And after this, I mastered it. And I was just looking at her while she was going in on me. And I was like, ay, ma, voy a rezar por ti. And I wasn't even saying it as a joke, but I told her like, "Hi, mom, I'm gonna pray for you." And when I told her that, I think she was like hoping I was gonna get engaged in the fight, but she kind of looked at me like she didn't even know how to react to me telling her that, because usually like I would argue with her back. She just fucking walked away from me after that, and she just left me alone. After that, like whenever she would try to like pick on me, I would react to her like that, like, "Hi, mom, I'm gonna pray for you. And I feel like that would piss her off even more. My intention was not to piss her off even more. My intention was just not to argue with her. But I feel like it would piss her off even more because I wasn't engaging. So, like, now she doesn't argue with me as much. Also, my mom, she wasn't the type of person to say, like, I love you. My mom probably stopped telling me I love you when I was, like, fucking 8. My mom wouldn't give me hugs. She wouldn't give me kisses like that. So I remember once I started getting more patience with my mom, like I told myself like I need to work on my relationship with my mom, because like I want us to have a better relationship. The first time that I did this, and you guys, I actually started doing this like maybe like 6 years ago. It hasn't even been that long. So whenever like I would like say bye to my mom, I remember I gave her a kiss on the cheek, and like it was like throwing holy water on us. Like, you know when you throw holy water like on something like fucking like, I don't know, like something bad, and it just like catches fire? Like, bro, that's what it felt like, because like we were just not affectionate with each other. And I remember when I gave her a kiss on the cheek the first time, she kind of didn't even know what to do with it, you know? Like she was just like, "Oh, thanks." And then I was like, okay, baby steps, you know? And then I remember like I started getting used to her I started training her. It sounds bad, but I was training my mom. So then I started telling my mom I love you, and then she would like say it back like, "Oh, I love you." But she only tells me I love you if I tell her. And even now to this day, I feel like she kind of struggles with it, because like I'll tell her I love you, and like she'll just stay quiet, and then like I'll be like, "Say it back." Like I'll literally have to tell her like that, "Say it back." And then she's like, "Oh, I love you." I'll get on her like, "Ma, dame un beso." And I remember the first time my sister Marbella seen that I gave my mom a hug, and I gave my mom a kiss, and I told her I love you. She's like, "What the fuck? Did you just tell my mom I love you?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Why?" And I was like, I just been training her to do it. So like now she does it and she's like, okay. But it's like not, it wasn't that she was hating or anything. It was just like not like, it's just not like in our MO to do that. Sometimes I feel a little guilty because I feel like I could be a better daughter. I don't think I'm like the worst daughter in the world, but I do feel like I could be a little better. I feel like I could try more, especially because my parents are getting old, and God forbid that they leave this world like anytime soon. But I don't want to feel like, oh, I should have been a better daughter, you know, or I should have spent more time with them. And you know, I could spend a lot more time with my parents. I am guilty of that, and I'm just trying, you guys. Like, I'm trying to do the best that I can, and I just hope my parents know like how much I love them, because I have like a lot of good memories with my parents. I recently opened up to my sister about this maybe like a year ago. And like when I opened up about to my sister about this, like it was the same thing. It was like the waterworks, and like I'm the one in the family that doesn't really cry. So when my sister seen me crying, she's like, what the fuck? Like, and I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, but it's because I had like, it's been sitting on my chest heavy and I just had to let it out. My sister was like, why didn't you tell me everything that was going on with my mom? And I was like, I didn't want to tell you anything because I just didn't want you to like get my mom in trouble, you know? And like I actually told my sister, I was like, you know, thank you for taking me in as a kid, because I told her, like, I know it was hard for you with what you were going through, but I told her, like, thank you for taking me in as like one of your own. If I didn't have my sister growing up, then I don't know how I would have ended up, you guys. Like, honestly, I probably would have went down the very wrong path. So I told my sister, like, thank you for taking me in, because I know I wasn't your responsibility, you know? I've tried to talk to my mom about you know, like some of the stuff that I had on my chest, and you know how I felt as like a kid. I think it's like an older generation thing. I don't know if they pretend like it didn't happen because they don't want to feel guilty, or like if she really doesn't remember it happening. I don't know, but she says that it didn't happen. And at first it would kind of make me angry because I feel like she was kind of like disregarding my feelings. And I would really get mad at her. But at the end of the day, now I'm like, I don't need her to like apologize or like understand how I felt, or like I don't need her to acknowledge some of the stuff that I went through, because at the end of the day, like I'm at peace with myself. Like, I'm not gonna fight those demons anymore. Some people get dealt with the worst life than me. This is not even bad, like, you know. So I don't want to make it seem like, oh, I had the worst like childhood ever, because honestly I didn't. I think everyone has like their own story, and 100%, you guys, there's people who have worse, like there's parents who have tweakers as parents. You know, people who, like, you know, they physically you know, treat their kids bad, and you know, that wasn't really the case with me. So it's like at the end of the day, like, I'm thankful for my parents, and you know, they did the best that they could, you know. So all we could do is, if I have, you know, my own kids someday, I don't want any, but in the case that I ever do, all I can do is learn from my parents' mistakes and try to do better, you know. I don't have kids of my own, but now with my nephews, or like, you know, my baby niece, whenever I see them, like, oh my god, like I drown them in kisses and hugs, and I tell them like, I love you. Like, I always tell them I love you, because once they get older, I don't want them to feel weird how I feel weird telling my mom I love you, or giving her a kiss or affection. Like, I want them to feel comfortable telling me I love you, you know, giving me hugs. So like I'm so affectionate with the kids, and I don't have no problem being affectionate with my nieces and with my nephews and my niece. Like I'm super affectionate with them. All we can do is try to break generational curses, you know? That's all we could do, and try to make better decisions. And anyways, I can't believe I cried in front of the camera. Hopefully this is the one and only time you guys see me cry on camera. Super embarrassing because I don't really like crying in front of people. The only people I ever cry around is maybe like the twins, and you know, maybe my sister here and there, and like, you know, my very best friends. But other than that, I don't really like crying in front of the public. So, and yeah, you guys, I do these videos because I just feel like you know, sometimes when I do like my breakup videos, like people will message me and they'll be like, you know what, Mo, like you made me feel seen, and it's good to know that I'm not the only one going through this, you know. So yeah, you guys, that was I hope I was able to touch bases on everything I wanted to talk about. I have a headache from crying. Oh my god. Sorry my makeup's all fucked up, but if you made it toward the end, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. This is like off tops one of the hardest videos I've ever done in my whole YouTube career. This is like one of the hardest videos, and I kind of knew in advance that I was gonna cry, just because whenever I talk about it, I cry. But this was just a very super vulnerable moment, and yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Well, not enjoyed seeing me cry, hopefully that's not the case, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, thank you guys for being here. I love you guys so much.